Good day and welcome to RockIT with Chief. I'm your host, Daniel Robus, rather flustered, and it's not because of my guest, it's because I had a run down the road. Today, we've got Daphna Horowitz in studio and in conversation, and the world is filled with gifted, talented people who simply never achieve their potential. Daphna has the gift of spotting talent and nurturing it to all levels that few people believe that they could reach before. A South African-born global businesswoman, a speaker, coach, author, podcaster, actuary, just to round it off, as well as a wife, a mother, and a dedicated friend. Today, I'm hoping to dive into both your business as well as your world views. Wow. Do you get prizes for the amount of hats that you wear, Daphna?
Well, Daniel, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me to your show. And I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have. And to answer your question about the hats, I think so. I think people do give me the feedback. It's kind of a funny thing because for me, it feels just like who I am. And I love to do a lot of different things. But I do get that feedback of I do so much. And sometimes I step back and get a little bit of a surprise.
How do the kids cope with that? How do they share you? Because you've got quite a public persona and your work is you have to be there. How do they deal with that?
So it's a really, really good question and one that is worth looking at, because I think there are different phases in your life as a working mom. For me, my career has always been incredibly important for me as part of my self-definition. And at the same time, being a mother has been super important to me as well. And it's always that question of how do you do both well is something that has really followed me throughout my career and my life. And I would say, of course, the family and the children always come first. And at the same time, I think that I've given them the lesson of what it's like to be a working mother in your own business, running your own business, which is a very different, I suppose, feel to a working mom who has a job where, you might have certain hours or whatever, because I'm always working. I'm working from home and my work hours are at any point in the day. It could be a work, whether it's late evening, early morning, something in between. But it's always been important for me to be very present for my children. So to manage all of that. So if in between meetings I pop out to take my child to school or to take them to their activity or whatever, I'm always there, always present, and always in conversation with them. So things like family dinners have always been an anchor point for us to make sure that we come together and eat together and have conversations. And they're older now, so it's easier as they get older.
And I don't know, that family dinner, I don't know if that's a South African thing or if that's a Jewish heritage thing, but I honor that as well. That time is sacred and we've got to look after it because it's touch points, isn't it? It's connections and memories are built. How do you describe your work to someone you meet at a cocktail party?
Oh gosh, that's such a tough question. Okay, how to describe my work? If people ask me, what do you do? I will say I'm a CEO coach. And I help CEOs really become better leaders through looking at themselves, first of all, because I think it all starts with self-leadership. So if you want to be a good leader, you need to start by having a good dose of self-awareness to know what you're doing well and what you could be doing better and where your blind spots are. And I think that's where it all begins. So we start with leading self, leading people, and then leading your business. And I think that's the order. Because often CEOs, and the truth is I work with CEOs and their teams. I've got a coaching team as well where we go in to do larger projects. So it really is about developing leadership, because leadership has to start with you. And then it moves on to how do you lead your people? And then how do you lead your business? And not the other way around. And I think sometimes there is a focus on the business first. What are the metrics? What are the performance outcomes that we need? How do we get better at what we do? And I think those are really important questions. And at the same time, if you realize it all starts with you, your behaviors, your strengths, your areas of development, how you interact with people, how you bring people together, how you motivate and lead them, you're going to get to those business results way better, faster, and more impactfully.
What I find when I'm coaching people is that self and what we can control and what we're concerned about there's such a muddle in between them. Is that common around the world, that people are just, they're worrying about things that are out of their control, which just takes time from them?
All the time. We are always worried. As a human species, I believe we're always worrying about things that are outside of our control. And it doesn't help because it just adds to the stress levels.
So it just sucks joy.
Exactly. Sucks joy and adds a huge amount of stress, because when you are worrying about something that you have absolutely no control over, how are you going to really feel like you have a say or have control or have influence or have impact? You can't.
But that victim mentality is just one that we see all over, and we can take our own discussion on to how people get into that. But I think you touched on it earlier, being a CEO, being a leader yourself, and then owning your career. You could have chosen to stay at an insurance company and being the youngest advocate and actuary and just taken that golden highway. Why did you choose to branch off on your own? Why didn't you take the gilded handcuffs?
It's true. You're so right. For me, it was about maybe two things. One was about people. So at the time when I was working in a corporate environment, I felt that the emphasis on people, who we are as human beings, was missing. There was a huge gap between that focus on performance and results and what we do, what the job that we do every single day, and who we are as people and how we need to develop the people around us. How I was developed even as a young, qualified BSc honors in actuarial science, working towards my qualification, the qualified actuary status. And really the whole focus was on passing exams and doing my work. And I never felt like I was seen as a human being. Where do you want to go from here? What are your strengths? Where do you want to work? Where do you want to have an impact? I was never asked any of those questions. And the more I got to higher levels of performance, the more that gap increased, because my feeling wasn't there. It wasn't coming along for the ride of, okay, I'm doing well, I'm learning a lot, I'm achieving, but how do I feel about it? And nobody asks that question. And certainly 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was discussed even less. Today, we've progressed to a place where, there's a focus on career development and people development and leadership development, which is really wonderful to see. But at the time, there was a huge gap for me. And I really started asking questions. What is this about? So for me, the people element, developing people element, was the one thing. And the second thing was that I realized that you can be really good at something, but if it doesn't come with a sense of purpose and meaning and significance for you, then you're not going to be happy. And that was a big realization, because often we talk of, if you work in your strengths, you'll be great. And I was good. I was strong. I was really strong at maths and stats, and I loved the way of thinking, but it didn't connect to my sense of purpose ultimately. What am I doing this for? Why am I here? Why am I getting out of bed every morning to go and do this work?
That was a mic drop moment there. I love that. You can be good at something but not enjoy it. The difference between stress and pressure, for me, I'm sure it's the same for you. You've got content creation at the center of who you are. Why is it so important for you to be an author and a speaker and creating content? Why does that make you tick?
It's so interesting, because you could say that I just have a lot to say.
Yeah. I didn't want to say that. I'll get into trouble.
But I will tell you that as a child, I was the shyest person. I would not open my mouth to speak. I really, even to say hello to people was a big deal. So I've evolved over time. I think the content creation is really about maybe expressing myself and my beliefs and my values and the work that I do. I think it's an integral part of my work. I don't do it because I think, okay, a newsletter has to go out, a podcast has to go out, this has to go out as part of my marketing strategy or business plan. It's really because I want to write about these things, and I love writing. For me, writing it does come naturally, and I have a lot of my way of seeing the world, my perspective is always interesting. There's something that happens, and then I make some connection and I want to write about it and share it with people. So that it comes from something that I really love to do and enjoy doing. I never really thought I would be an author. It's not something that I thought this is what I want to be one day, or that I'd be creating this much content, but it's kind of evolved, and I've gone with the flow of what feels good and right for me. I will add that at the beginning, before I started my newsletter, and I've been writing an email newsletter every single week for the last probably 4 years. Before I started that, I found it to be almost impossible. I thought this is not, I would see other people generating content and putting out newsletters or emails or whatever you want to call them. And I thought, I can't do that. How can I possibly do that? How can I possibly have so much to say? Even with my books, I thought, how can you write a whole book? That's a lot of stuff to say. But when you just break it down and just start, I think that's also part of it, is just start something that you really want to do and see how you keep it going. So that's how it evolved for me. Yeah.
Just start and get into the habit. And you've written books about habits, and you're coaching on habits. And then how much of our lives can be changed by habits, in your opinion?
So I think habits are really important, because everything we do is a habit, by the way. Every single thing we do. Our way of talking is a habit. Writing is a habit. Brushing our teeth is a habit. Driving is a habit. Anything that we do on a repeated basis turns into a habit. So while we might not think we're all creatures of habit, we actually are. And the question then becomes, how do we design habits that work for us and that help us to get further than where we are today, or to go and do those things that sometimes feel out of our reach? How do we design habits to help us get there? That's the question, because the habits are there. So, and I want to differentiate between habits and routine, because I can tell you now, I'm not a person of routine. I'm a huge rebel. If someone says, do it this way, I'll find my own way. If I have to do something every day, I probably won't, those kind of things.
That is so good. That is so good. Just for our listeners and our audience there, please go to Daphna's website and look at the book, download it, buy it, get it. Where can we get it? On all sorts of platforms. Hey?
Yeah, Amazon is the key one.
Easiest.
Yeah, the easiest. You just go and order. Thank you.
It's really, habits are, self-reflection is the way to change the trajectory of our life. Habits are a plan to get us there, and I really think we should do that. Exactly. So you've got so much coming your way. Who is the role model for you? Who's I want to be like them when I'm big?
Wow, such good questions you're asking me, Daniel. Who are my role models? I think there are a few, and I think they're different for different areas of my life. Actually, the newsletter I wrote this week was about Madeleine Albright, who passed away last week. And I think she is an incredible role model for a woman who, again, it's not like she came out with a goal of, this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to be US Secretary of State. She just took it one step at a time, wanting to make an impact and wanting to have a voice in the world, and to forge the path for women to have a voice, so that it's actually way more obvious than it was in her day. So women like that are my role models. And certainly she's also came from a background, I feel connected to her because she came from a background they had to flee Europe, her and her family, when, Second World War and the Holocaust and all of that. So really making a new life for themselves in America, starting from nothing and being able to have such a beautiful impact. Those are the women that I think are amazing. And there are a lot of them. There are really a lot of them. So some that come to mind are Michelle Obama, I think is fantastic. Oprah Winfrey. I have another guru that I love is Martha Beck, with her approach and her philosophy on life. So a lot of women definitely are my role models, for sure.
Are you a sporty person?
That's a trick question.
It is a trick question. It is a trick. Because there's little things that happen in sport as well, which are and you see these acts of absolute triumph and just human emotion condensed.
Exactly. I love watching the Comrades Marathon just for fun, just to watch people as they come in, on their knees sometimes, and just that the emotions that it stirs up for you, and the feats of what they've been able to achieve. So I love watching sport, and definitely so many stories of unbelievable resilience and battling through changes.
So as a segue out of there for the rest of our audience, Comrades is the largest ultra run in the world. It's 89 kilometers from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, or Durban to Pietermaritzburg. And hopefully I'll be lining up this year again. But we'll see.
Have you run it?
I've done
Amazing.
a few.
How many times? Oh my gosh. So you know all about it. Oh my gosh.
So one day when we're not on a podcast, I'll tell you about crying through many of them. But where do you self-educate? You've come out, your newsletter comes out like clockwork, but you've also got opinions on LinkedIn. And where's your go-to place for self-education?
Oh, everywhere. Absolutely. So I'm an avid reader. I'm continuously learning. So whether it's doing courses, and also very broadly in my field. So whether it's leadership, it's not just leadership. It's a lot of the spiritual stuff and the, quantum physics stuff, and then business and leadership books. I just read a lot of books. I do a lot of courses. I'm an eternal learner and student. So wherever I can draw inspiration, I actually go there. So
give us three that we should be either reading, listening to, or doing, please.
Okay. Whoa. I'm trying to think what's on my, so I'll give you one, and I'm terrible with remembering books names, but maybe you'll help me. The one, because you talked about sport, there's Born to Run.
Amazing.
Oh, life-changing book. I think for anyone, whether you're a runner or not, but I will say, just going back a little bit to the sporty conversation, I'm not a sporty person. In fact, very, very much more of a nerd than a sports person, but I've built that up in my life also through habits. And I climbed Kilimanjaro about 10 years ago, and I think that got me onto just to get fit, and I took it on because I wanted a physical challenge, and that got me into the running. So I do run, and that's basically what I do. And I ran listening to this book, which is just incredibly inspiring and just a wonderful. So that's, from an area that's not business related at all.
Awesome. And that journey of yours was amazing as well. But that was a bit of a life changer for you, wasn't it?
Completely life changing. And actually that made me into an author, because it really was one of the hardest things I've done by choice. And everything I experienced on that journey felt to me like a parallel and a metaphor for leadership. So I came back and I wrote this book called Courage to Lead, and it is all about my trip up the mountain and the metaphors that I saw between that and leadership. I think that writing the book was a form of therapy for me as well, because I think I was a little bit traumatized from the experience. As I say, not sporty, not used to camping or anything like that. So the whole experience was very challenging for me.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. His next book, Running with Sherman, is one you must put on your list as well. Also, an iPod, easy to listen to, but a really joy. It's about running with a donkey.
Oh, fantastic.
When you go to a new project, what are your go-to apps in your toolbox that make you more effective? Because you've got a big team around you, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. What's your secret?
For sure. And I think you need to, when you're running a business, you need to look at what are the things that are going to make the structures easier for you and get, things streamlined so that things are running for you and you're not constantly having to reinvent the wheel and redo everything from a manual kind of point of view. So a lot of online tools. So for sure, the whole virtual thing, if we just go into that for a minute, I moved from South Africa to Israel. And in that move, I made a very conscious decision to create a global online business, using virtual platforms and virtual spaces. So Zoom was my first thing. And I would often say to people, let's Zoom or something. And they wouldn't know what I was talking about. And today it's, of course, part of the vocabulary. Everybody knows what Zoom is.
Yeah, exactly.
I was an early adopter.
Yeah.
So that's for sure. Have a good virtual space. And I also actually want to add to that. Don't be shy to pay for the tools. Don't always go for the free options. because when you use a tool and you're paying for it, you get a whole lot more benefit, you get a whole lot more customization. And also I think it's part of, if you're using something and really benefiting from it, then let the people who are developing it benefit from that as well. There's some value exchange there that I think is really important. So that's Zoom. I'll add another fantastic tool that I absolutely love, and that's Loom. Is that what you mean? Do you want me to talk about something?
Yes, that's exactly it. What is Loom?
So Loom is amazing because Loom is a screen recording app that allows you to video as you are doing things on your screen. And I use this a lot with my team. So I've got teams for my podcast to do the creation of my podcast and all of that. I've got an assistant who helps me with project management and all of that. I've got a social media person who helps me with that. I've got a website team that maintain my website. I've got a lot of teams, and you can't always get on a call and say, here's what I want you to do, or type out an email and say this needs to change. So what I'll do is say, take the website, for example, and I need some changes on it. You click on Loom. It allows you to record the screen with you. So you can choose to either have the camera on and you talking, or camera off and it's just a picture of you. So you talking the person that you want to do some work for, you talking them through the changes that you want to make as you're going on your website.
That is amazing. That's such a good idea, because then there's no ambiguity about what you want out of there. It's clear and you can direct it.
And you can
Zoom and Loom.
Zoom and Loom.
Zoom and Loom.
And I will add, the Loom is fantastic because we also put a lot of our processes on it. So, for example, onboarding a new client, do a video of what the process is and where the spreadsheets are that you keep the details on. And then you've got a Loom video of the regular processes in your business, and it's all filed away. Instead of having, we used to have, what do they call them? The procedure manuals for companies. Yes. Do it on video. It's so much easier. So do you think our leaders are techno savvy enough today? How important is that for a modern leader, in your opinion? It's really interesting. So I think for an entrepreneur who's working with a lot of different, let's say, freelance kind of support people in their company, like I am, you have to be tech savvy. I don't know how you run a business without knowing what's going on and using all the tools. I'm just going to mention Active Campaign and Dropbox and, Google Drive and ClickUp for project management, or any other. I'm just giving names, but there's so many for all of those things. You need to understand how to run an online system with your systems and an online business with the systems and structures that can really support it. Another one that we use is Slack for communication, which is fantastic as well. So you need to be very savvy on those things. And I have to say, sometimes when I interview someone to assist me on a particular project or an element of my business, and they don't know, like I say to them, have you used Loom? Do you know Canva? Do you know this? If they don't know Active Campaign, if they don't know those tools, I think you've got to get with the program. If you're looking to support entrepreneurs, you've got to make sure that you know how to use various online apps and tools, because that's the way business is going. Now, if we take it into the corporate environment, which is really more where I work with companies, I work with small to medium-sized businesses mainly. That would be sort of anything from 50 to 1,500 employees. It's a very different mechanism, And here you've got an IT department who helps you and runs things with you and whatever. But if you look at companies that are at the startup phase, so say even at the 30 people employee place, okay? And they're starting up and everybody kind of does everything. And actually, and I do work with CEOs in that building up phase. So they've passed the very, very initial stages of startup. They've got funding, they've got clients, they're keeping going. They also need to kind of think differently about that, and they haven't got a full-on IT department in place, but they need to think about systems for managing their finances or sending out the regular email newsletters or whatever it is. I had one client who was actually sending out informative, like info emails to their clients. They had maybe about 30 clients. He was putting them all in BCC, and actually the CEO was writing out the email and putting the names in BCC. So things like that, there's an evolution, I suppose, that happens. But when you come with a corporate mindset, you don't always know what are these tools, how does it work,
Absolutely. We're talking about moving the network point, and or I talk around moving the network point, but the corporate, he just assumes it gets moved.
Exactly.
Whereas for us, it's like, dude, no one's going to move it. If you don't move the network, it ain't moving. So there is a mind shift, isn't there?
Sometimes I wish I could have an IT department that
Exactly. Now, Daphna, the starting your own business, you've been at it for a while. What was harder than you anticipated? And especially now you've gone global and you're just forging ahead. What's been harder than you thought?
I think what's been harder for me than I thought is, well, I think actually there are different stages of the business. So I think right in the beginning, there was always the question of where are the clients going to come from? Where are they going to come from? I think that's maybe the biggest stress point. And then you get to a point where there is a natural flow. I mean, I must say my business is still very much word of mouth referral business. I think that's the best place you can get clients. And what will happen is maybe they'll hear about me and start following me on LinkedIn. So I think there's really great value in having that visibility on LinkedIn in particular, having a website and all of that. But still, at the end of it, most of the business comes through some sort of referral. Okay. And I think for me, now I'm at a stage of the scaling part, because now I've got a team of coaches and we go into organizations to develop future leaders as well, not just work with the most senior executives or CEOs. So bringing people in and working with them and creating a business that is scalable, that's kind of the next level now of how do you do that?
Oh, that's awesome. If I had to go to a customer of yours that was not happy, why do you think they wouldn't be happy? What is your Achilles heel?
What is my Achilles heel? Let me think for a minute. A client that wouldn't be happy. I think maybe it would be something to do with the connection. Because I think for me, if I look at, I'll take the opposite of the Achilles heel for a moment. The strength is really around building a trusted relationship and building a connection. And that's really how I work, regardless of whether, we're a whole team coming in to coach the high potential leaders and future leaders in the business, or whether it's just me coming in to coach the CEOs. It's all about building that relationship and maintaining that relationship. And for that, there has to be a good fit and alignment of values and way of working and all of that. So I think where it wouldn't work or where it didn't work in the past is where there wasn't that fit. There wasn't that, relationship that was really a good, trusted, solid relationship. And there might have been some friction around the way. Look, I tend to be quite direct and honest and, help people see elements of themselves that they might not always want to. So that kind of style might not necessarily work for everyone. So I think maybe that would be where the, more difficult areas are. I will say, though, that where I'm at now is really, and I've always known this, is I'm not for everyone. I'm not going to be able to coach everyone, and I don't want to coach everyone. But I love the fact that what we do now is we'll go into a business, and what I do is I get very involved in the matching process between, so say, for example, I've got a CEO who wants to coach 5 of their high potentials, give them coaching so that they can really hone in and fine tune some of their leadership skills. So they're really, really good at what they do, but they're not such great leaders maybe, or maybe they have some blind spots that they need to work on. So it's very clear to me that whether I'm coaching the CEO or whether I'm not, that I'm not going to coach any of those 5 people. I come in, I understand the company, I understand the objectives, and I have a great team of coaches, and I meet every single one of those high potential leaders about to be coached. So I get a sense of who they are, and then I help them to find a good match between them and their coach. And for me, that's really liberating, because I go in there knowing I'm not going to coach. I'm not going to coach you, I can really help find the match. And if the match doesn't work, we just replace that coach with another coach. Yeah. So I think
having that confidence must be such a joy now that you've done it. Now you've done it for so long, and you can almost see the road that they're going to be walking down because you've got that experience. That must be a joy.
It's an absolute joy, and I love that. I love that because I really feel like I'm a part of, partnering with someone in helping them get to where they want to be in their life, whether it's through me or through one of my coaches. And that's a part that I love as well, is that being able to provide work for other coaches as well. So I just, there's another element there that's fantastic.
What do you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
It's actually, I don't know if it's about the profession. Maybe it's more about myself, is to just say, trust yourself. You know what you're doing. You're going to be great. You're going to grow in a way that is going to be wonderful. I think there's a lot of stress around what's next. How am I growing? Where am I going to? How am I building this? And I think I am a high achiever type personality. So there's always the what's next? What can I do more? What can I do better? What can I do? And I think I would say to my younger self, just relax and trust yourself more. Like, trust yourself that things will work out. Just follow your path. Do what brings you joy and work hard. I mean, I think that's part of it. That trust that it will be okay. And I know that's a really, really difficult thing to say. Really difficult thing to say to a younger self.
Everybody I ask a similar question to, that's a high achiever like yourself, says the same thing. It's almost couched in fear. Don't be afraid. Be aware, but don't be afraid. And it's just a theme that's come through in this season again and again and again. What do you think is the biggest challenge leaders are facing today? And how's that going to change in 5 years?
Yeah, wow. That's really, I don't know about the 5. I have to think about the 5 years.
Yeah, that's fine. Today, let's talk
where are we going? I think, no, just in terms of the world that we're in and the chaos that we see all around us. It doesn't matter. Just having come out of a global pandemic and now there's a war situation. What's going to be in 5 years? We don't even know. So it's going to be very interesting to watch the trends. And I will say that it really comes back to finding your voice and being true to yourself in all of this. Don't just follow the global trends or intelligence or way of thinking. Question everything, because I think things are going to become more murky, less obvious, less rational. I think we like to think, I think this is part of our defense mechanism, is that we think that, there's cause and effect. And actually, I think we're entering into a world where there is no such thing. It's not, or at least we can't see very clearly what the cause and effect is. So we've got to stop thinking that way. And we've got to be much more in tune and aligned with, why are we here? Who are we? What is our purpose? And how do we do our thing by bringing people together around us to achieve what we want to achieve? So actually, I wouldn't answer the 5-year question, but
that is more than I expected. That is power, man. That is power. And you've interviewed bucket loads of great people on your own podcast. What's your common thread that makes them successful?
I keep going back to this, but I think that it's so important. And I think this is what's going to be called on us as human beings as we, I think, dive more and more into this uncertain future. And that is know yourself. Know yourself. Be true to yourself. Be real with yourself and the people around you. Like, stop a lot of the people pleasing and the...
That's a tough thing, and I get it when you're coaching folks in America and I coach it in Europe. Is Africa ready for that?
100%. I want to say, let me give you a practical example of something that actually happened in a client session this week. We were talking about a conflict situation between my client and someone in the organization, and just two very different ways of thinking and disagreeing on how to move forward in a particular situation. And my client was just saying, help me understand this person. I really want to understand how they can't see it the way I'm seeing it, basically, like how they can't see the same things. And you know what we landed up doing, which for me was mind-blowing. I didn't know this is where the thing was. That's what I love about my work. I never know what each session will bring, and it's always really, really amazing and keeps me on my toes. We went back to drawing a values map for my clients. So we went back to their values and we said, okay, let's look at your values. we knew what they are, and let's order them in terms of we all have a core value that is absolutely our core, that even if we have, say, 4 or 5 very strong core values, the one at the very heart of the core will be the one that we will not sacrifice for any other values. Sometimes we have values that are in conflict. For example, if your spouse says to you, do I look great in this outfit? And you think that it's really an awful outfit, and you have the value of honesty and love, what are you going to do? Are you going to
suicide?
Yeah, exactly. You're either going to say, yeah, that looks terrible on you, or you're going to say, no, darling, you look lovely, fantastic, let's go. That all depends on which of those 2 values, honesty and love, sits at your core. If honesty is at your core, you will say, and you will risk the outcome of having a spouse or a partner who's in a bad mood for the rest of the evening. Or if your love is at your core, then you will go, no, darling, you look beautiful, I love you as you are, and you won't say what you think. So we could have the same values, but how they're ordered based on what's really, really core to us determines how we behave. So going back to this example with my client, we mapped out their core values in terms of what's at their core and what are the other ones. So you kind of draw these concentric circles of what is your core value and your next and your next and your next. And you know that when any of those are in conflict, your one at the very, very center will never be compromised. You might compromise or sacrifice some of the others. Now, we then try to figure out what was the core values map for the person that they were in conflict with. And very quickly, we saw why they couldn't reach agreement, because the other person had a very different core values map to this person. And that's why my client was holding on so steadfastly to their worldview and not able to see the other person's worldview, because they're just in a very different place from a values perspective. So when my client could understand it and see it, it calmed down his whole thing of, why are they being against me? Why are they not seeing my point of view? It's so obvious to me. And the reason I'm telling this whole story is because something that is external, a conflict, a disagreement, we don't see things in the same way. When you come back to yourself and analyze what's going on for you, what's at the heart of what's driving your behaviors and your perspective, then you also have a very different perspective on that external circumstance that is in your
absolutely. Context is everything, context, and that reflection you've spoken about almost as if people know that, but I don't think people reflect enough. Just personally, just throwing it in.
And take it back to you. That's really what I'm trying to say. Have more self-awareness of what drives you and why you might sometimes feel so strongly about something that other people don't. It's just we're all okay. We all have a valid viewpoint, but we just see things in a very different way. So the more you understand yourself, the better you are at also accepting differences.
So I was coaching someone the other day and I said, I don't want to hear about your team. This is your session. So Daphna, this is your session.
Exactly.
Dinner with any 2 heroes of the world today. Who would they be? Where would the restaurant be? And what would you be eating?
Whoa. Good questions. I like your questions, Daniel. They're complex. They're not just...
So who would we have at the table?
Oh, well, I think I really would want dinner with Oprah Winfrey, definitely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And who would be her counterpart?
Martha Beck. Definitely would love to sit and have dinner with her.
Sure. 3 powerful ladies at the table. And what would you serve them?
Was I making dinner?
No. You would be able to dictate to the chef.
The restaurant.
But what would you?
I just love sushi. I would go with sushi any day.
So Nobu, eh? So you'd be at Nobu. Okay. And where would it? And where would it be?
It would be awesome to do it at somewhere, maybe like even in Japan. How's that? Haven't been to Japan yet.
I was about to say, you haven't been there yet. So if you're looking for a coach, a CEO, and you're based in Tokyo, Daphna's here. She wants to go over to the land of the rising sun. That would be amazing. And I'll wear a kimono. We can go together. It will be super.
That would be super. I love it.
I'm going to ask you 2 more questions because I think I've overstayed my time. The first one is your message to middle managers about being future leaders. And it's a billboard to them as we wrap up this episode.
I would say know your strengths, know your zone of genius, and don't be afraid to shine.
Okay. Know your zone of genius.
Know your zone of genius. Don't be afraid to shine, and build relationships. Build relationships with the people around you so that they can see who you are, what your zone of genius is, and support you on this journey of leadership that you're on.
Awesome. My last question for you. What is one question that you would have liked me to ask, but I don't know you well enough that I haven't asked it?
Oh my gosh. What is one question I would have liked you to ask? I need to think about this one.
You can't. You can't. You're under pressure here.
No, I have to Okay. Give me yours first. What is a question you would like to be asked that people don't generally ask you? Let's talk about that.
Oh, that's such a terrible one. I live my heart on my sleeve. So most people know. I think it would be Dan, what's your biggest insecurity? And mine is with this new start and reinvention. Will I ever get to travel and speak to big audiences again? And I miss that so much. It's part of, it's just my thing. I love speaking to people and changing lives through a podium. So, but thanks for asking that. That was actually quite nice to get in there.
Exactly. See, that's what I love to do. I love to ask questions.
I know it's the.
I'll tell you maybe what it is for me is ask a question. For me, it would be ask a question that you're curious about me, like that. I think that in this world, we lack a little bit of that. We tend to stay in sometimes superficial conversations, which I don't really do well in at all. I love to go right into the heart of the matter, the depth of things. And I would invite people to ask those questions of me, of each other, where you're really you get curious about someone and ask them that question and then really listen. Because I think that's the other problem, is that there isn't enough listening in the world. And listening with real curiosity and without wanting to bring yourself into, I've had the same thing and let me share my story. And, so I think for me, that's what I would really value. And I think is a bit lacking is question that makes you deeply curious about me and then really listen with depth and continue this question. Because
I wrote listen with intent and listen with depth is actually better. I love that. Daphna, that's why you're a coach and that's why you do what you do. And it's been a real privilege to spend this morning with you. I want to thank you for giving us some time. I know how busy your schedule is. Just tell everyone in final, where can they get hold of you? What's your next trips? Where are you going to be? When can we see you and squeeze a palm and share a coffee? What's going on?
Thank you so much, Daniel. I've really enjoyed our time as well. And absolutely, you can find me everywhere. So LinkedIn, pop in, connect, hello. I'm actually off to London next week to promote my book at the London Book Fair, my books. And I'm very excited about that. And my website, daphnaHorowitz.com. And also there are tons and tons of resources on my website where you can also access my podcast. There's lots of information and exercise and practical ways to think about things that you can access once you're connected to me. So that's just an open invitation to connect. And I answer every single email that I get. So if anyone has any questions or thoughts or comments they want to share with me, I am more than happy to engage.
Thank you so much for that. And I can attest to that. Daphna's team is available and the resources are excellent. If you are on a learning journey and you want to fast track your learning and you want to skip a couple of steps, thinking is not cheating. And Daphna can teach you how to do that. So from me, Daniel Robus, your RockIT host, I want to sign off and say big hugs all the way to Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Daphna. Have an amazing day. And remember, life rocks if you let it.